We have millions of users now, which is really exciting. They make many millions of calls a day. What's actually even more exciting is that we get an aggregate of more queries through our APIs than we get on even our own end user facing U.com property. Why? We basically have two lines of business, which is similar to how Anthropic, OpenAI, and a lot of others do it too. You have a subscription line and you have an API line of business. And we're similar in that you can get accurate answers for all the different LLMs. It's actually kind of insane that we don't have millions of paying users that have all moved away from some of the bigger players, because we offer the same LLMs that ChatGPT has at less cost. And you get all the Anthropic LLMs and Google Gemini and Llama 3.1 and 2 now, and all of the models in one package on the subscription side. And then on the API side, you can also infuse those answers and that web connectivity into your own products. And that's where we're actually getting more traffic now than even our own property.
How are you guys able to do that?
That's a pretty complicated question. Yeah, we've been at it for quite some time.
Welcome to Sourcery. I'm your host, Molly O'Shea. Today, we have Richard Socher, a leading figure in AI and a name to seriously know. Richard is founder and CEO of U.com and co-founder and managing director at AIX Ventures. U.com is pioneering knowledge work with a high-powered AI-driven productivity engine. They recently raised a $50 million Series B led by Georgian with participation from Salesforce Ventures, NVIDIA, Gen Digital, SBVA, formerly SoftBank Ventures Asia, DuckDuckGo, and Day One Ventures, bringing U.com's total funding to $99 million. Previously, Richard founded MetaMind, which successfully exited to Salesforce and then served as chief scientist at Salesforce. Richard was an adjunct professor at Stanford and earned recognition as one of the top 5 most cited researchers in natural language processing worldwide. With AIX Ventures, the team has invested in over 30 AI startups like Hugging Face, Perplexity, Weights and Biases, Whisper, and more. This is a fascinating conversation, and Richard is a pleasure to listen to. I hope you enjoy. Hey, Richard, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Firstly, congratulations on the big announcement of your $50 million Series B. Would love to hear more about this round, who led it, and what you're looking to achieve with this new capital.
The round was led by Georgian and with participation from NVIDIA, Salesforce Ventures, several of the existing investors, SoftBank Ventures Asia came into, and we're going to scale with this fundraise and go more and more into solving the questions that people have when they're trying to do more complex knowledge work, because that's where we see being 10x better than a Google. And so we're seeing companies actually caring about the fact that we're much higher in accuracy than any of the competitors to the questions that really matter for their careers to get right. And so after we've realized that, we're basically more and more focused on what we call productivity engine use cases, complex questions that matter for you and your business.
And so when you were constructing this round, what was the strategy? I know you had a handful of strategics in it, such as NVIDIA, DuckDuckGo, and Salesforce Ventures. How did you think about the evolution of the company and who you wanted in this next stage?
I think, like you said, we wanted to have more strategics in there that can actually help us also with growth, both as scaled partners, as customers, and where there's actually a lot of synergy. And you can kind of see how we have more and more partners that can also make use of this technology of making LLMs become more factual, more up-to-date, and connected to the web in accurate ways.
So before we get too deep into anything, we have to talk about what you're building with U.com. I have to admit, I've been using the product a bit, and I think it's fantastic. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the pod, but it's fabulous not having to go from tab to tab and try things out. But you not only have different offerings of LLMs on the platform, but you have different kinds of AI agents for different tasks, which is so fun because I go between research mode and just general search. But I'd love to know, could you just share more on how U.com has evolved and what your vision is for AI-powered knowledge work?
Yeah, we actually started as a search engine years before ChatGPT came out, so the BC era. A lot of people kind of call that now the before ChatGPT era, and somewhat forgotten times. But we started with search, wanting to revolutionize and change what search is and actually summarize and give you answers. And we've done that for a while, and we realized that a lot of folks are very stuck with Google, even though Google has gotten worse and worse. But also, there are a lot of normal people out there who have fairly simple informational needs. If you have a very simple, normal life and you mostly ask Google, like, what's the score of this game? What's the weather tomorrow? What's the stock price? When was France founded? Like simple questions, then you're not going to be able to give a 10x better answer than Google using some really sophisticated AI. There's only so much you can tell people about the score of a game or the weather tomorrow. And we're the first to bring LLMs into the search engine space and have some exciting patents, some already given, some pending on that. But we realized at some point when we charged people for the product, because it was getting expensive and there are no really good advertisements, people don't want ads in their answers in a chat engine that they're hoping they can trust more than a search engine. So we started charging for a subscription. And when we charged for it, things became very clear. Like who's actually interested in paying for this technology? And it turned out that other than students, there's a lot of knowledge workers that really benefit from this. And when we do a lot of comparisons to the competition, usually the competition spends much more money on marketing and design and less on accuracy of the technology and accuracy of the answers and even the citations. A lot of folks just fake their citations and just random links behind sentences and they have nothing to do with one another. Looks like you can trust it more, but you should actually trust it less. So we double clicked into this and saw a big pull from customers that are working inside companies. And so now we're leaning more and more into that. And that's why we've rebranded from search via an answer to a productivity engine. Why? Because these workers, knowledge workers in sales, in service, in marketing, in research, and analysts in VC firms. We actually have several hedge funds and VC firms that are actual paying customers and get their whole company on it because they understand how powerful it is. Just to give you an example, since I know there's some investors also on your podcast, you can, starting this week, actually upload an entire 50 megabyte set of files, like an entire data room. And then you ask all kinds of questions over, the spreadsheets, the CSVs, the, PowerPoints, the PDFs, and so on. And all of a sudden you can do diligence. You can ask what are the competitors that are not mentioned in this because it has web access. And people, once you give people a few examples of how much this can change, when you get accurate answers for internal data and external data, you realize this is actually starting to automate more and more of the boring parts of my work. And that's why we're calling it a productivity engine.
Wow. Okay. So new use case for me unlocked. That's amazing. Just a good database engine for the data room.
Right.
Going on top of that, what are your current stats? How many users do you have and current growth trajectories?
Yeah, we have millions of users now, which is really exciting. They make many millions of calls a day. What's actually even more exciting is that we get an aggregate of more queries through our APIs than we get on even our own end user facing u.com property. Why? We basically have two lines of business, which is similar to how Anthropic, OpenAI, and a lot of others do it too. You have a subscription line and you have an API line of business. And we're similar in that you can get accurate answers for all the different LLMs. It's actually kind of insane that we don't have millions of paying users that have all moved away from some of the bigger players because we offer the same LLMs that ChatGPT has at less cost. And you get all the Anthropic LLMs and Google Gemini and Llama 3.1 and 2 now, and all of the models in one package on the subscription side. And then on the API side, you can also infuse those answers and that web connectivity into your own products. And that's where we're actually getting more traffic now than even our own property.
How are you guys able to do that?
That's a pretty complicated question. Yeah, we've been at it for quite some time. We're able to distribute the load. We're able to, when people just use our standard agents, which we'll get to maybe also in a sec, we can choose the right LLM for the task. And overall, the user doesn't ask 5 times more questions when they have access to 5 times more different LLMs, right? So you get a similar amount of load, and then we just distribute that to some of the LLM providers or host it ourselves in some cases. And so yeah, that's how we can do that. And so maybe the last bit that I didn't answer for your previous question was on the agent side. Like, why do we call them agents? We had this Genius mode, we used to call it, or Genius Assistant for a while. And we realized, just like with RAG, where we had invented RAG already, we're doing it at a web scale, but it wasn't yet a term. And then at some point we said, oh, I guess we're doing retrieval augmented generation. The future is already here, it's just not equally distributed. And in this case, Genius mode was basically one of our agents that can decide when to search, when to do follow-up, additional, deeper searches on the web for you, when to program, when to actually run that code, which is non-trivial, like for general purpose Python code, right? You can like just to run that on your own machine. It's kind of a security nightmare that you have to get right. And then it basically has these various actions that it can take here with searching and running code and writing that code. And so that is kind of what people call agents. And it's a highly non-trivial thing to get right at scale. And we're excited that people have sort of seen this and are loving these kinds of powerful features that you can have. And now you can even build your own custom agents where you can also give it the ability to search. Probably next week, you'll even have the ability to focus that search on specific web properties, which unlocks a whole new set of use cases to be much more grounded in specific databases and facts that you want. You can also, as an enterprise customer, kind of connect it to your company internal data, and we do private RAG on massive data sets too, and basically get the agent to ask you follow-up questions too if there are things that are unclear. And when you put all that together, you realize, wow, most of the workflows that you have, if you understand how to use this technology, it turns out to really help with workflows. And usually it helps to give an example. I meet a marketer and they're like, oh, how should I use this technology? I'll just give them an example of, well, you might be every month you get a new technical description document from your product and engineering team. And now you have to go market that new feature. Well, if that's your process, then you can take that document, put it into u.com and then say, now go and describe this feature for these 3 industries. You can then go and say, write me 3 LinkedIn messages each time I get this, write me, 3 tweets, text messages, and 1 email campaign. And then go on the web and compare this feature to what the competition offers. And that's the steps. Those are the steps that I usually go through as a marketer when I get a new feature from the engineering team. And now you just describe that once. And then the next time you get a new document from the engineering team, boom, it just goes through all the steps and creates all that work output for you. And, I can go through similar examples for sales, for service, especially tier 2, more complex service questions that company internal employees have. VC analysts, hedge fund analysts that need to understand the space, the company, make decisions about things. All those are people that realize in many cases that the competition in the space that we have is just not quite as accurate. And they really need it to be accurate because their careers and the decisions they make for their companies.
Hey, we'll get right back to the conversation after a word from our sponsor. Sourcery is brought to you by Archer. I'm genuinely amazed at what Archer has been able to accomplish. Archer's goal is to transform urban travel, replacing 60 to 90-minute car commutes with estimated 10 to 20-minute electric air taxi flights. They are safe, sustainable, low noise, and cost competitive with ground transportation. Archer's Midnight is a piloted 4-passenger aircraft designed to perform rapid back-to-back flights with minimal charge time between flights. Learn more about how Archer is set to open up a new world of opportunity for passengers by providing safe and efficient access to people, places, and events across the communities they live. Visit archer.com.
Really depend on that accuracy.
Given the competitive landscape in AI products, would you say this is more of a fight for accuracy and that's kind of the leading winner there? Or do you think it's more on the product basis of who has the best features or, let's say, shiny objects or marketing campaigns? Obviously, I know what you're going to say, but I'm curious from your standpoint within the broader competitive landscape, And even with you.com, like what would those key features be for you? How do you carve out differentiation and attract more paying customers? Or is it really just laying on the accuracy and driving that forward?
The accuracy is certainly helping us to close deals. In many cases, the unfortunate thing and the reason why accuracy can't be the only thing is that we often have customers that thought they could do it themselves, thought they could do it by sitting on top of some APIs from OpenAI or sitting on top of ChatGPT, thought they could work with some of our competitors, and then realize like, A, it doesn't get adopted in their organization, and B, it doesn't get adopted because it's accurate like 60, 70% of the time, and you don't know which one it is. And then they click on the citations and they send you some random website that has nothing to do with those facts. And then they actually at some point stumble upon you.com, do that comparison, and that's how they become our customers. Companies that had built their internal sort of quick hackathon tools because some VP of innovation said, oh, I can build this myself. It's not that hard. You just take an LLM and do some RAG and that's it. And then it turns out it's actually quite hard. It's easy to build a prototype. It's very hard to get this in production at scale to be really, really accurate. And so it is one of the biggest reason why we have hedge funds, insurance companies, publishers, and biotech companies, fintech startups, cybersecurity companies. Those are all organizations that care about accuracy. If you're just kind of there to brainstorm and do some things and the score of the game, like you can go to lots of places, including Google, and it probably doesn't make that big of a difference if the score of the game is slightly off or not up to date or whatever. But when your career depends on it and you make some bad decisions, you walk into a meeting and say, well, our customers, you increased, so congratulations. And they're like, did you not really see our last quarter? It was terrible. You know, it looks really poor on you if you're a sales guy or an analyst who gets the numbers wrong. And so now, the reason that's not enough is that, you know, it's the sales cycle is just slower when people first have to try and fail with other solutions and then come to you. So we have to do more marketing. We have a new CMO now I'm really excited about, and we're bringing that message to more and more people so that they understand sort of where's a quick hacky prototype good enough, what the use cases are for when you really want to engage with that technology beyond a proof of concept level and go more into like a really deep workflow that you can rely on at scale. And then the other thing we're doing now is that we're basically trying to align our incentive structure with those of enterprise customers. Concretely, we're offering both seat-based and consumption-based pricing models. Some customers really prefer one over the other, and we want to align. I actually think consumption-based pricing does align with usage, and hence we only make more money if the companies actually use it. This comes from a lot of organizations that bought 500, 1,000 plus seats for their product, and then after a few months, they look into how many users are actually using it, and it's like 5 to 10% in the company actually really use it. And so, you know, they're sitting on all these unused seats, and that's not ideal. And so in those scenarios, instead, we're actually doing consumption-based pricing, and we're doing workshops with them where we actually explain to them how the technology can transform all these different workflows in sales, service, marketing, and like knowledge work, analytics, deep research, and you know, as a journalist, like doing background research on your company internal archive, as well as like other sources on the web, and you can turn them on and off, and all of those use cases. And that's kind of what differentiates us. So, number one, accuracy. Number two, customer success and engagements, and number three, sort of actually accurate agents that you can rely on for workflows.
Maybe this is more of a technical question, but how do you ensure the accuracy and reliability of the information you're providing, especially when they're more complex, require up-to-date information? Do you have certain types of testing you use in-house? How do you ensure that?
Yeah, there's the true answer is very it could take hours to give the full thing. And then of course we don't want to fully explain it to all our competition. There's a lot of copycats out there already as is. And so we just like on some level, we just care about it a lot. And it's sort of my background. I'm German, I'm a former researcher. I don't like overhyping things and then not like delivering on the technology side. And so Likewise, my CTO and co-founder Brian McKenna and I, we with others invented prompt engineering in 2018, and we love sort of pushing the technology further and further and making it really, really good. So that's sort of organizationally and philosophically kind of where we are. And then, concretely, there's sort of two stacks that you use when you try to work with LLMs and getting accurate answers. There's a search stack, and then there's the LLM stack. And LLMs are great at synthesizing a lot of the facts that they get and then reasoning over them and giving you answers, but they're not very good at the retrieval bit. So you have to have an accurate search engine. And a lot of companies that started sort of after or around when ChatGPT started, they kind of skipped that whole search engine bit and they just work on LLMs. And the problem is, like, to a large degree, LLMs are garbage in, garbage out. If you ask a question and your search that gives you a bunch of outdated and wrong retrieval results, the LLM can't recover from that and it won't give you the accurate answer. So the first thing you have to work on is actually getting your search engine stack right. And our uniqueness is that we've come from the World Wide Web side of things, where you have billions of documents you have to search over. And we offer actually very accurate news endpoints, a news API that searches over news and is up to date every 2 to 3 minutes. We have full web APIs too, and you can infuse them also into your own LLM without using any of the other stuff. So these are standalone APIs. And then in the APIs, of course, we provide the full solution too of accurate answers that are connected to the web, but you can also merge them and connect them to your company internal data, both in terms of uploads, starting this week 50 megabytes, which is best in the industry. And that's where you can all of a sudden upload an entire data room, which, it's kind of interesting. Google Gemini said, oh, we have a 2 million token context window, and that sounded amazing, until you realize that's one 5 megabyte file. And most companies have bigger files than that. And so you merge all of that. So then choosing the right LLM is like a whole LLM orchestration layer to understanding the intent is another aspect of this LLM stack that is non-trivial. Basically, in some cases, the best answer isn't text. Like if I ask for stock price, we realized, as much as I love natural language processing, I've been working in it since 2003 in one way or another, started contributing to the field since 2010. But the large models that we need here need to not always be the way we actually answer that question. So if I ask what's the stock price, I don't want a bunch of text about the stock. I probably just want a stock ticker. So I can see the stock price as it changed throughout the day, week, month, year, and all of that. And so we were in early 2023, the first to make these LLMs actually multimodal so that they can respond with interactive graphics or plots as well as text. It's, again, another idea that has since gotten copied by others, but so we sort of innovated on that at edu.com early. So all of that comes from an intent classifier. And then, of course, we have the citation logic. Again, it's a feature you can kind of prototype fairly quickly, but when you actually use our research mode and you click on a citation, you can see that in most cases, it will actually scroll down and mark exactly where it found that fact on a massively long website. No one else does that. And so with this technology, again, if it's relevant for your business to be right, then you want to trust but verify often. And if that verification step takes too long, because half of the citations are fake, which they often are in our competitors, or you then get the citation to a massively long document and you're like, well, now I need to read that whole thing to know if that fact was really true, you start to lose more and more of the goodness of the technology in the first place. And so, which I think is actually an interesting Gen AI insight, that is that the longer it takes you to generate an artifact with Gen AI, but the faster it is to verify if that artifact is actually useful and good, the better Gen AI can change that industry or that workflow. Concretely, it takes you a very long time to create a new illustration, but you can quickly look at it and be like, that's beautiful and captures what I want. And so, that means that for illustrations, like Gen AI is perfect. And for answers, complex answers, it's also like, it might take you a long time and dozens of Google searches to do it yourself. But if you can quickly look at it, fact check it very quickly with the citations, them scrolling and marking exactly where they really got all the facts, all of a sudden you save a ton of time. And that's where, on some fundamental level, we realized you can't be 10x better in telling people what the weather is tomorrow, but you can be 10x better when they have these complex informational needs.
Wow, super, super impressive. And thank you for explaining all of that out.
Yeah, I
It's
could go
really
for
helpful.
hours. There are like dozens of these different modules, and how it all like gets put together turns out to be non-trivial. But yeah, it's exciting.
So, part of your Series B announcement, you did also announce this next chapter as an AI productivity engine. Within that, there was one key feature that I thought was awesome and so fun, and I can't wait to use it with my colleagues. You now have a multiplayer capability. So, could you share more about what and how you got to multiplayer and how teams will start to use this?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the team aspect of this too. It's also how a productivity engine is different. By default, we actually care a lot about privacy. There's some offerings where you can actually like just mark your URL, and then anyone who knows that URL can also see your answer. Like there's no privacy in that way. It's sort of by default publicly visible. For us, it's like you have to click on the share button, and then you can actually share that link and that answer. So the default is it's private. But the more you go into a company context, and the more, for instance, you all work on the diligence of a company together as an investor, now you want to say, well, I want everyone in my team. You can create a new team, right, within your organization. Everyone in that team should have access to the questions I asked, to the documents that are relevant for the agent, to know about this as we're diligencing a company or a space. And so that's kind of why we're calling it multiplayer. It's basically at first just the ability to share custom workflows, custom agents with others in your team, and then have projects where everyone actually has access to the same underlying data the way your AI agent would also, and you can kind of share the questions that you ask over that data and the insights that you get from it. And so, yeah, I'm excited for that too. There's still early days for that. I think there's a lot more features that we can and should implement eventually. I would love it if you can like be all in the same chat at the same time, like asking questions, and you see as that unfolds with someone else. It's not quite there yet.
In terms of AI agents, how have they evolved within the platform? And do you have any goals for like a super mega crazy AI agent in the future?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting for us. We've had this kind of agentic AI before. People kind of talked about them as agents, and we just called them modes, like our genius mode. I'm actually really excited about that. We have this like 10x research mode that might be coming out soon, where it does actually quite a lot of pretty complex work. And I think the way you can think about it is like a simple answer engine might save you like a few seconds compared to a standard search engine. A complex productivity engine might save you hours or days eventually of work with automation and with these workflows. And so that's when things get really, really exciting. Eventually, of course, these agents should have more capabilities, especially in the code, on the coding side, but eventually also the clicks that they can make for you on the web. And that will, I think, change the whole web. I think in the next few years, we're going to see more AI agents surfing the web for people than we'll have people surfing the web. And so that will change how the internet works, I think, especially the ads economy. And maybe some people will try to block it. But, if I have my personal assistant, if you're wealthy enough, you already have that magic of a personal assistant that can help you book a flight and do kind of like certain things online for you. And eventually, as technology moves into the space, we get more equitable access to these kinds of capabilities that only rich or like senior people currently have. And I'm really excited for that. I think we also have to kind of acknowledge that agents are neural sequence models. What that means is they basically just take a lot of sequences and try to, like in sort of a pre-training stage, try to predict the next step in a sequence. And if that next step is English, right, then you can learn all kinds of world knowledge that we have infused in English language. If it's sequences of actions, you can learn workflows, right? And if it's sequence of proteins, You can learn the basic foundational aspects of biology. If it's sequences of still frames, you're going to learn all kinds of interesting things about movies and like visual storytelling. So there's all kinds of neural sequence models that we can train, and that as they get big enough, they have these incredible emerging properties. And so I'm excited for that for workflows, because my strong hunch is in the next 5 to 10 years, if you're working in a company and you're doing something that feels fairly repetitive and boring, and you've done it like a dozen, 2 dozen times, you're like, why isn't my AI agent taking this boring workflow over from me? I just taught it like 20 times. Like, it should have gotten it by now, right? And so I think that will ultimately lead to more and more interesting work where you have to be creative, understand what the workflows are, explain them well, and then you can leverage all of that additional power. And again, it's somewhat akin to what in the past was only accessible for very wealthy or powerful or senior individuals. They ultimately manage teams. And I think more of us will be able to manage teams with AI, but eventually you'll realize managing is also not always easy. You got to train and become a good manager of other people and other AI agents.
Talking to the customer side, who are your key customers? What's their profile? And how do you expect them to grow or expand?
Yeah, there's sort of two categories. On the API side, we have some very large consumer companies. They don't, unfortunately, always want to share exactly who they are, because they don't want the world to know how they get their answers to be more accurate. But on that side, we have companies that themselves have hundreds of millions or more users and infuse our search or LLM or both capabilities into their own end-facing user products. And then on the enterprise site license line of business, we have a whole host of different folks, which kind of is both a little bit scary, to be honest, as a startup founder. I wish it was just like, oh, they're all in this one tiny niche and we dominate this one niche, right? But the truth is we have one of the top 20 largest hedge funds as a customer. We have a bunch of like tech unicorns. Mimecast, a cybersecurity company, recently just increased their scope again with us, seeing incredible results, and a couple of other tech unicorns like them. We have biotech firms that are doing research with the tool. I have some very exciting announcements coming out where I actually partnered with someone who's been working in this space for a while, and they've been trying out different solutions, and like, it's kind of mind blowing. I think I have a question here that we're able to answer for them, right? So imagine they upload like hundreds of large documents, CSV files, like Excel spreadsheets and so on. And we can now answer for them in the biotech space questions like, how many control and test patients were there in this study? So that's a simple one, right? But then we can also answer really hard questions that would actually have taken them like hours in the past. And they're just mind blown that we can fully accurately actually give them those answers. And one of those questions was, considering the differential analysis in figure 1 and the plots in figure 2, how are gene expressions at the cellular level influencing the progression of Alzheimer's disease? And then it just like goes and figures all of this out with all of the data that is in there. And so that's been exciting. Big group of customers is media and publishers too. They also care about being accurate, obviously, and citing and knowing what the veracity and source is for that information. We're doing now company internal RAG for news and publishers. The first one that just gave the okay to talk about them is called Wort- und Bild Verlag, one of the largest German publishers in the healthcare space. Also, one of the largest German publishers. Really excited to work with them. We work with insurance companies now. They need to have all kinds of complex claims processing and to like, oh, this case is coming in. How should I, process this claim? It costs a lot of money to do that. And with AI, we can help them automate those processes. And yeah, the list goes on, but it's a pretty broad range. And you realize the ICP here is a knowledge worker that has a lot of different sources of information that they have to make sense of.
Well, hopefully we can get our insurance claims, our health insurance claims to us a lot faster. I don't know why it took a year, but all of a sudden I just got hit with a bill and It's great. I love it. So I was scrolling through your Twitter and your LinkedIn as well. You're quite the healthy poster. I appreciate that. In one of your posts, you mentioned the marginal cost of intelligence is going down. So what does that mean today versus in 5 years, 10 years? And if this continues in this direction, how will we all be using our time and resources differently?
Yeah, there's this interesting Jevons paradox that I read about recently where basically for a while, a lot of the smartest people in the world were working on making like steam engines much more efficient. And they're like, oh, we're making them more and more efficient, thinking about sort of the limits and the bounds of what that efficiency can be. And they're all thinking, oh yeah, if we make the steam engine more efficient, then we'll have to use less coal. And what actually happened is that more coal was used because people just built more steam engines and more these kinds of tools in more places and use them in more and more different industries. And so I think something similar is going to happen as the cost of intelligence is going down. We're just going to use more intelligence everywhere, right? Like anything from your light switch to like your flight scheduling, to your marketing automation, to your tier 2 support, everything will get more access to technology. And we're probably just going to use more and more of it to make our lives simpler and more efficient, and outsource all the boring, repetitive stuff that we used to be kind of doing. And so I think what that means is that it can be a little bit scary, right? Like at times, as things change, you can try to kind of fight the change and say, I prefer if we don't change the world anymore. And then some level, you almost, I think different civilizations will maybe answer that question differently. Some people say, you know what, I'd rather have a job than the economy be more like automated and efficient and productive. And I don't want to change what kind of job I have. I want to hold on to this one job that I've done the last couple of years and not find a different one. And if enough people want to do that, then that country can decide to just not automate, right? There's companies like Bhutan. They measure not their overall country's goals by GDP, but by growth happiness defined by a ruler. And they can make those decisions. And, you can live on a beautiful island in Greece and just enjoy. You go fishing once a day, you have some food, and you sell some of the fish, and you live your life like that. And that, it's sort of like not up to me to tell everyone to embrace the future. But it's also fairly clear to me that when you fight that, you will just in comparison fall behind to the countries and the civilizations and the societies that embrace that next step function in human productivity. And that will mean that the countries that do embrace AI will just start to become massively more successful on most metrics over time compared to those that don't. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that. And I think that's what's going to happen when intelligence gets cheaper and cheaper. We'll just be all much more efficient. And most of us have to become managers of AI agents doing work for us. And you need to still be really smart. You probably still will need to work hard, but you also need to be creative. And you need to understand this technology at a level that enables you to make use of it.
So at what point does U.com become 5 employees with just a ton of AI agents?
It's unlikely, I think. Just because we do have, like, you do need to program all of this, and it's non-trivial to get this all like implemented correctly, right? But I do see us already using the technology more and more also. And a lot of people think we're like several hundreds of people because, we have a whole search engine stack, we have an LLM stack, we incorporate all the different LLMs, we have agents, we do all of this usually before the big companies do it and others copy it, and we're getting it accurate. Now we're also, selling it more and more, which is great. Revenue is doubling every quarter this year, and it's becoming really meaningful now. And so we're really excited about that. But I don't think we'll have in the next few years like the sort of unicorn with a single employee type of situation. I think that will probably take a little bit longer and will be non-trivial to get right. And probably there's some luck involved, but also some really exciting ideas. I do think I want to kind of balance the excitement of the future with also the hype bubbles that are happening, right? I do think the all boats are rising in a good way because of AI getting better and better. At the same time, there's like hype bubbles on top of it, right? You see this kind of inflection and a bunch of others. I don't want to name too many names here publicly, but there's like this sort of almost like a pump and dump scheme going on in some cases with AI. And what we're seeing is that sometimes the expectations are too inflated, and like the hope is that things get too like very automated very, very quickly. I think we have to kind of be excited about the future, have this constructive optimism, I like to call it, to build it and make the technology better, but also be realistic in terms of how quickly we can do this. For instance, with agents, a lot of folks are thinking just like have this agent and just like automate this like 20-step workflow really quickly. Well, it turns out if your agent is like 95% accurate on each step, and you multiply 0.95 like times 15, then like half the time that process will fail, right? If it's not like implemented in a way that's very robust to errors in each step. And so we have to kind of be realistic and understand that this technology will change everything, but it won't happen overnight, and it will take a lot of good engineering to get right.
I know we definitely got ahead of ourselves, but going back to your background, you have a really tremendous, phenomenal career. You've accomplished many things and sold a company to Salesforce. So what first got you interested in the field, and what has been the thread that's been pulling you through all along?
Yeah, I'm originally from Germany. I came here to the US for my PhD and loved it since, and don't think I'll move back anymore now. I had this crazy idea in 2010, hearing Andrew Ng talk about neural networks for computer vision and being able to learn features from just raw pixels. And I was working with Chris Manning on the NLP side of things. And I was seeing how some of the top PhD students were spending a lot of time engineering features in their research projects. But then the paper was mostly about some beautiful conditional random field math. And I was like, it's a little bit weird that we're spending so much time on these features, and then the paper is mostly about this beautiful math on top of it, and it doesn't seem as relevant as those features were. And so I was trying to merge those two ideas and kind of, in many cases, reinvented things from scratch and eventually had words for it. And then at the time, Googled them and realized, okay, other people had invented stuff in this space before. But as I kind of reinvented some of this, I got really attached to the idea, and I thought, this is clearly like the right thing to do. The technology should be, we should get as much data in and then learn as much from that automatically to predict the next thing. And my research kind of culminated in 2018, but before I got there, I basically finished my PhD. No one was teaching neural nets for NLP in the world in 2014 when I graduated. And I thought, man, I'm still not, I can't convince some of these older professors. They're so like sort of prefer other methods and don't believe in neural nets. So I got to train the next generation of folks. I started teaching on the side at Stanford, did that first as a visiting lecturer, only like a quarter here and there, and eventually as an adjunct professor. And then after 4 years of doing that, the world has kind of switched and everyone was starting to use neural nets for NLP. And then I kind of said, all right, mission accomplished on the research side of things. After the PhD, my main job was actually starting a company called MetaMind that made it very easy to train neural networks. I can just drag and drop images and text documents into the browser, train a neural net, and apply it in your company with 3 lines of Python code. We got it acquired by Salesforce, where I became chief scientist, eventually executive vice president, running most of the AI efforts within Salesforce. Had a phenomenal time there. On the research side, this was in 2018, we finally culminated all my ideas when we invented prompt engineering. And we didn't quite call it prompt engineering, but the basic idea was there, namely that you can prompt a single model with different questions, and then you get the answers to those questions out. And that was a way to unify all of natural language processing and eventually, hopefully, also all of vision, where you just ask, what's the sentiment? That used to be like different tasks for different teams, different groups, different researchers, professors that built their entire careers on like one kind of task in NLP. Just ask one model, though, in the end, in 2018, what's the sentiment? What's the translation? Who's the president? What's the summary? And like, you can ask one model all of these different questions about some input and you'd get some output. And That paper was actually cited by OpenAI, and they're still doing research papers. We were told by some of the folks that worked on the first version of GPTs, like 1 and 2, that actually had influenced them to work more in NLP. And in that sense, it was really exciting. Then in 2020, I thought, well, if we can have a single neural net for all of NLP, why don't we have a different search engine now? Like that will just give me answers rather than lists of links. And so then I felt like I had to start U.com. And then also I've been very fortunate to invest in a bunch of companies since my own startup got acquired, and invested in all my like interns and students and employees and friends and folks in my community. And so that had worked out really well. And so I started AIX Ventures together with other really amazing AI practitioners and an incredible co-founder and headquarter team around Sean Johnson to invest in other AI companies too. And yeah, that's a little bit about my life.
It's amazing. And it's very qualifying for the next question. Considering you sit in both seats, investor and founder, I'm really curious on your take on the opportunity of AI agents. Like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of hype that comes with cycles. AI agents is a really hot topic right now, and I'm not sure everybody fully really truly grasps maybe the perspective that you have, having founded a company and actually operating with AI agents, and then also investing into them.
Yeah, so AI agents, I mentioned a few tidbits about them already. Like it's easy to build a prototype, hard to get it right at scale, especially the longer and longer the sequences of actions are, the harder it is to get them right. The fact that it's sort of a neural sequence model is both powerful in its generality and very exciting to have them over actions. I think there are and have been already a few casualties of companies that thought they could automate all kinds of incredible tasks and spend quite about a bunch of money, raised a ton of money, and then weren't able to really get a task fully in production. And I think we have to still be realistic. The way we're thinking about this is our agents will help like with specific tasks and help a person to automate one aspect of their workflow. They won't necessarily take over the entirety of a job of someone like right now. I'm seeing a lot of interesting companies in this space. Like one company is called MoonHub. They do AI agents for recruiting, and they're still like working also with some people, but they're automating more and more aspects of a recruiter with an AI agent. And so I think we're seeing similar things. I think at the beginning, AI agents, it's actually an interesting thing to think about this over time as the AI agents get better and better at something. At first, like a coding agent, for instance, right now is actually lifting up the at or below average programmers more and more. Like if you're a solid programmer, but maybe not the best, like you can get much more productive with an AI agent that helps you with programming. And the top programmers right now are not yet getting as much of a benefit from this because they're often actually building better code than the AI. Now, I think over time that will probably shift. And at some point, you may not need the at or below average programmers as much anymore because AI will be good enough at taking over those simpler workflows. And then you still, I think, will need actually the really good coders even more so because they need to inform and guide and manage all the AI agents that do work for them. And so I think that's kind of how it will play out. I think companies that embrace it, that understand it now, will be able to gain much more like efficiency on all different aspects, especially of knowledge work, eventually also of physical work. But robotics, everything is slower in wetware than in hardware, and in hardware than in software. Wetware being like biology. And so we'll see those eventually happen too, but it takes longer. And overall, I am very bullish on a lot of different agentic workflows being automated. And companies becoming much more efficient that way.
So what specific factors make investing in AI agents an attractive opportunity for venture capitalists?
I think the opportunity here is, to get that next type of investment, like a company that understands their space really well and can massively grow because of the increased efficiency that they have, right? Which means that either lower cost more revenue or overall just more productivity for everyone involved.
And what would you imagine a billion-dollar AI agent company to look like?
I guess like you.com. Basically, I think there's going to be two types, right? There's the horizontal one where we really help an organization with their entire company's AI transformation. And that, when they work with us, they can automate and become more efficient in sales. You have AEs prep documents and know exactly what they need to go and crush a meeting and be really good in it. You can have service where tier two, especially tier two support, it gets more complicated, more different documents, more corner cases, more reasoning, help them be more efficient there. In marketing, they can write personalized campaigns. First, they're industry specific. Eventually, they can be specific to each person in their backend work, in their claims processing, all of these efficiencies, right? So there's one set of companies like you.com that will be transformative for an entire AI's, an entire company in their AI journey. And then you're going to have very vertical specific AI agent companies that go so deep in to one area like recruiting or tier one service kinds of support or outreach like BDRs and so on, where you go so deep in that you can eventually actually fully automate over the years like a specific type of role. And so those are probably the two different types of AI agent companies that will emerge.
Got it. You touched upon this a little bit earlier, but what does the current AI funding market landscape look like? I think we're all aware of the massively inflated valuations of some companies, but are you seeing this trend continue? Are you seeing it wane? What justifies those valuations? And I just don't understand if that's going to be sustainable for much longer.
Yeah, as an investor, I have shied away from what I call unicorn seed rounds, largely because they merge seed stage risk with late stage returns. And if you understand expected value, that's just not a good place to be as an investor. And so we at AIX have not gone that crazy on some of these massive, very early pre-product market fit, pre-product of any kind, pre-demo like kinds of rounds. And so that doesn't mean that none of them will work out, right? There's some power law, maybe some will actually be successful, but it's quite hard to do that. I think if you start to show revenue over time, the AI funding situation is still very positive, and you just need to balance sort of the longer term vision with some concrete milestones as you scale and start raising more and more.
Are there any particular areas that you're interested in? I know with your investment fund, you've already invested into 30 AI companies of the likes. You invested into Hugging Face, Whisper, Perplexity, Weights and Biases, and more. Do you have a particular thesis when it comes to these opportunities, or are they just people that happens to be, a function of being a VC, seeing things come by and you just bid on it?
Yeah. So it's sort of the two hats that I'm wearing, right? And I think the sort of setup of AIX Ventures is that we actually have a full-time team in headquarters that does the standard VC stuff and needs to constantly be on the lookout for things. But we also have a team that is actually full of full-time AI practitioners. Anthony Goldblum, who runs Sumble, Peter Beal, who's a professor and founder, Chris Manning, who's a professor and advisor to many startups. And those folks just have those communities naturally, right? And they're seeing things happen. And in some cases, they're the ones that are actually inventing those things. And hence they see the future before it's obvious to a lot of other folks. And so we work tightly together with these investing partners, also like myself, and the headquarters team. So that's helping in terms of interesting deal flow.
Well, to wrap it up, I like to close out on a good positive note. What are you most excited about for the next year?
I think the future needs better marketing often in the world, because objectively speaking, everything is getting way, way better. If you look at a large enough time horizon, child morbidity, like literacy rates, like deaths from malaria, like some of the nastiest things that have plagued humanity for a long time, like are all like improving on a great scale. I think we need to get people to understand how exciting AI can be and how transformative it can be. And that if you have a long enough time horizon, then you should be very excited the way that now no one wants to work with their hands in the field anymore. But 150 years ago, when over 90% of people worked in agriculture, if you told them, oh, some big machine that could crush you will take away your jobs, like maybe they would have not been excited, right? But I think when you embrace this technology and you realize you can become a manager of AI doing things for you, especially if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you can be very excited. I think we're going to start seeing more and more things come out in biology that are just mind-blowing, because just like we can write a poem in English now, with AI, we can write a protein for medicine, and guide and make biology into an engineering discipline rather than a science where we just understand nature, but we can't change certain things like viruses and how they attack cells and all of that, and cancer. And so I'm incredibly excited about that. I'm excited about scaling U.com, of course, over next years. We have an incredibly exciting pipeline of customers that are understanding now how powerful the technology can be and help them kind of empower their businesses to do better. Excited to invest in more incredible founders that have deep industry expertise, as well as deep AI sort of native knowledge. And I think those are just a few of the things. I'm excited about lots of things in next year. It will be an exciting one.
Those are some great items. Is your team hiring at all? Is that going to be part of the growth?
100%. Yeah. We're hiring, looking for great engineers, VP of engineering, sales, marketing, product, enterprise. Yeah. All hiring on all fronts. So please apply.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Richard. And thank you for making my new favorite workflow product. Congratulations on your Series B. And this was such a fun conversation. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate your questions. And happy to chat anytime. Thanks for listening.
Awesome.